Agenda setting. Agenda setting is the art of making you focus on what matters most to those in power. Not by telling you what to believe, but by deciding what fills your mind. Picture a spotlight on a stage. Whatever it lights up becomes the story of the day, while the rest stays hidden in darkness. This trick shows up most during elections, scandals, or national crises. The purpose? To highlight certain issues so you're debating them endlessly, while others quietly slip from attention. Imagine a president took to the podium and said, "Citizens, today we focus on the rising crime wave." Just like that, crime dominates your thoughts. Inflation, healthcare, unemployment. They fade into the background, not because they don't matter, but because the government chose what you see first. It's the magician's hand wave. You follow the moving hand, while the real trick happens elsewhere. You think you're making your own choices, but you're actually reacting to the chosen spotlight. Think about the news cycle. One trending story fills every headline for days. Meanwhile, other issues that affect your daily life disappear. Can you remember a time when a government blunder suddenly got buried under a bigger story? Yeah, that's agenda setting. Back in the 1970s, Maxwell McCombs and Donald Shaw studied this during a U.S. election. They found voters cared most about the issues that dominated news coverage, not necessarily the ones that affected them directly. Since then, politicians everywhere have used it as a playbook. Framing. Framing is when politicians shape how you see an issue, not by changing the facts, but by changing the lens. It's like giving you tinted glasses. The color of the lens determines how the world looks, even if nothing has changed. This often shows up in debates, campaigns, or even during wars. The aim is simple: control the interpretation of events. A budget cut becomes fiscal responsibility. A war becomes a mission for freedom. Same reality, different frame. Suppose I'm your president, and I tell you, this isn't a tax increase, it's an investment in our children's future. Notice what happened? I didn't deny the tax. I just repackaged it in a way that feels noble. It's like serving you bitter medicine in a sweet-looking bottle. You swallow it more easily, not because the content changed, but because the packaging fooled your senses. Think about your workplace. Is it downsizing or streamlining? Is your phone used or pre-loved? Words change perception. Can you remember a time a phrase softened something harsh or made it sound worse than it really was? Yeah. This is a powerful weapon governments use to shape opinion and justify policies. Call refugees illegals and sympathy shrinks. During the 1990s, researchers like George Lakoff showed how framing could drive public opinion. For example, calling it the war on drugs framed narcotics as an enemy to be defeated, not a social issue to be solved. That one word, war, justified decades of policies. This can be used positively or negatively. Slogans and repetition. Slogans are like political tattoos, short, sticky, and hard to forget once they're inked into your mind. They don't try to explain the whole policy. They don't even need to make logical sense. Their job? To bypass deep thinking and lodge themselves into memory through constant repetition. This technique has been around for centuries. Think of Winston Churchill's wartime mantra, "Never surrender," or modern campaign chants like, "Yes, we can," or "Make America Great Again." Repetition made those words more than phrases. They became rallying cries. Psychologists call this the illusory truth effect. Repeat something enough times and people start believing it, even if logic says otherwise. Imagine I were your president and I kept chanting, "Jobs, jobs, jobs," or "The people's voice, the people's power." Notice how your brain starts nodding along, even though I haven't explained how I'll actually achieve any of it. That's the power of slogans. They collapse complex problems into bite-sized emotional hooks. Politicians use this especially during elections, wars, or crises, moments when people crave certainty and clarity. A three-word slogan sounds like a promise carved in stone compared to a 50-page policy document. And because humans are wired to conserve mental energy, we often default to what's simple and repeatable. You've probably seen this play out in other ways. Think of advertising jingles that won't leave your head. Same trick, just applied politically. A catchy phrase becomes an anchor. Repeat it enough, And it doesn't just feel familiar. It feels true, even trustworthy. Scapegoating. Scapegoating is when politicians pin society's problems on a single group, person, or outsider. It's the shortcut. Instead of fixing the issue, they hand you someone to blame. Think of it as political target practice. The bullseye keeps you distracted while the real problem stays unsolved. This strategy surfaces most in economic downturns, crises, or when leadership fails. The purpose? To redirect public anger away from those in power and toward a convenient enemy. Picture a president dressed in a sharp black suit saying, "Our economy is struggling because of illegal immigrants taking jobs." Reasonable or not, it has the power to instantly shift loyalist frustration from their policies to an outside group. You're too busy pointing fingers to notice the cracks in their leadership. It's like a home football team losing 0-4, and the coach tells the press, "We only lost because the visiting fans were too loud and unruly." Instead of owning bad tactics, he offers supporters an easy enemy to blame. You might have seen politicians do the same on the national stage. Remember a time blame was shifted to a group that couldn't easily defend itself, and you believed it? Yeah, exactly. History is full of scapegoating. In the 1930s, Nazi Germany blamed Jews for economic collapse and national humiliation, fueling devastating policies. Even today, studies show leaders under pressure often resort to scapegoating minorities or external enemies. It's a timeless political reflex. The bandwagon effect. The bandwagon effect is when politicians convince you to join a side simply because everyone else is already on it. It's less about truth and more about momentum. People fear being left out, so they jump aboard without questioning the destination. This trick thrives during elections, rallies, or policy pushes. The goal is to manufacture popularity, because if something seems widely accepted, individuals feel pressured to conform. The government says, "Millions of citizens are already supporting this reform. Don't be the last one left behind." Suddenly, hesitation feels risky. You don't want to be the odd one out when the whole country is supposedly united. That's exactly the effect it's designed to have on you. It's like being at a concert. One person claps, then two, then suddenly the whole crowd is applauding. Even if the performance wasn't that great, you don't want to be the only one sitting on your hands. Think of viral trends on social media. People jump in not always because they care, but because everyone else seems to. Politicians understand this, and they use it to get the same result. Remember that period you started developing a soft spot for a weird policy or candidate, simply because the media kept saying their support was growing? Yeah, it worked. In the 1930s, advertising firms mastered this tactic with slogans like "America's most popular cigarette." Politics adopted it quickly with campaign posters boasting huge crowds or polls exaggerated to show momentum. Research shows people consistently follow what looks like the majority view: emotional appeals and fear tactics. Fear, it's one of the oldest political levers. Emotional appeals, especially fear, anger, or disgust, bypass logic and hit straight at survival instincts. A calm voter may debate. A fearful one will obey. Think of slogans like, "They're coming for your jobs," or headlines screaming, "Your children aren't safe." The point isn't balanced analysis. It's to jolt your nervous system and push you into fight or flight decision-making. Picture this scene. A leader on TV says, "If we don't act now, crime will flood our streets and enemies will be at our gates." The details are blurry, but the emotion, crystal clear: fear that demands action. These tactics explode during elections, wars, or health crises. Leaders know people will trade freedom for safety when they're scared enough. Fear can unite citizens, or turn them against each other, depending on where it's aimed. Psychologists at Rand and other institutions found fear-based content travels faster online because it triggers primal brain circuits. Posts sparking anger or disgust spread farther than neutral ones. Politicians ride that wave like surfers on a storm. Think back. Have you ever cast a vote, supported a policy, or even shared a post mainly because you were scared of the alternative? That may have been fear steering your hand. Gaslighting. Gaslighting is when leaders make you doubt your own memory, perception, or sanity. They deny facts, twist truths, and repeat lies until you start questioning yourself instead of them. It's not persuasion, it's psychological warfare. This tactic appears during scandals, corruption exposés, or policy failures. The purpose? To erase accountability. If they can make you unsure of what you saw or heard, they can rewrite reality on their terms. A countrywide protest was held against a new government tax increase bill. Hours later, the president came on the national TV and said, "That protest you saw on the news wasn't real citizens. It was staged actors." Even with footage, repetition plants doubt. Soon you wonder, maybe I misinterpreted? Maybe the video was fake? That seed of uncertainty is the victory. It's like repeatedly telling a 10-year-old that they are imagining things, and that what they saw isn't real. Over time, they stop trusting themselves and start leaning on you for reality. This manipulative technique is used by politicians too, and it may have happened in your lifetime. Can you remember a time when a government body flatly denied something more than half the citizens clearly saw or heard? To the point where even you started doubting? That's exactly how this technique works. The term comes from a 1938 play, Gaslight, where a husband manipulates his wife into doubting her sanity. Politically, it's been used in authoritarian regimes that deny atrocities even as evidence piles up. Studies on disinformation show repetition of lies can overpower even clear facts. Astroturfing and manufactured consent. Astroturfing. Think of this like grassroots support for something, but with fake grass. Crowds, hashtags, or petitions that seem organic are often funded campaigns or staged events. Manufactured consent is the bigger play, making it look like society already agrees. Think of online floods of identical comments or sudden citizen rallies with glossy placards. It looks like the people have spoken. Bots, in reality, lobbyists or PR firms are pulling the strings. Imagine you turn on the evening news and see a massive crowd of supporters, and the anchor says, "Citizens across the country are demanding this reform." You believe it must be true. But behind that segment? A campaign funded to make you feel surrounded by consensus. This tactic spikes during wars, bailouts, or controversial policies. When leaders can stage mass approval, individual resistance feels pointless. After all, who wants to stand alone against what looks like the majority? Political theorist Noam Chomsky argued that this staged consent is how elites manufacture legitimacy. And psychology shows once people think everyone else agrees, they often go along just to avoid isolation. Pause here and think. Have you ever noticed a hashtag explode overnight and thought, "Wow, the whole world must be behind this"? Chances are you've seen astroturfing without realizing it.